Joining me to talk about this more is James Witte. He is the Research Director at Institute for Immigration Research and Sociology Professor at George Mason University. Welcome to the show, Alex Nowrasteh. He is the Immigration Policy Analyst at the Cato Institute, Center for Global Liberty and Prosperity. Gentlemen, thank you very much. Alex, let's start with you. Well, first, let me start with the viewers, because what's happening here is that there is an immigration bill already that has been passed the Senate. It now goes to the House. The House is debating whether they want to pass any of it, and I guess the latest is that they're going to chop it up in little pieces and then try to pass it from there. Let me start with you, Alex. What are the parts of the bill that are likely to be passed?
Well, the first part that's likely to be passed is an enforcement-only provision of the bill. So border security, internal enforcement, E-Verify. Other portions of the bill that are likely to be passed are high-skilled immigration, as well as an E-Verify portion of the bill. Those are the most likely to be passed. The portions that are less likely, however, are the legalization for path to citizenship for current unauthorized immigrants and increasing legal immigration going forward for low-skilled visas. Those are more difficult.
James, let me ask you this. I mean, you're a professor and you get a lot of students, obviously, in your classroom, and not all of them are from the United States.
Right.
And this must be a very difficult conversation to have for them, because a lot of people say, well, I don't understand, because America is made up of immigrants. How can we not like immigrants? We don't want any immigrants to come to the country, and we have this internal battle and this sort of mini civil war, if you will, over something that it's got to be confusing to them. What do you tell your students? And when you explain this issue to them, why is it so controversial?
Yeah, I think we talk about it historically, that there's been resistance to different immigrant waves over 200 years, 200 plus years, and that this is a new version of it, and they happen to be on the losing end of it. But at the same time, the people who immigrate or emigrate and come into the United States, they tend to be ambitious, hardworking, and they're not going to let some little things slow them down and stop them.
Well, there is something that could stop them. That's called getting a visa. I was recently hosting a panel about the sort of STEM visas, this science and technology and engineering degrees, and how many companies in the U.S. say, hey, we don't have the qualified applicants. And of course, the flip side of the argument is that they're taking the jobs away from Americans. Is this bill going to address any of those concerns?
Well, it's going to address the concerns that are real. And a lot of the concerns that a lot of these people have are just not grounded in economic facts or statistics. For instance, there's no evidence that immigrants, when they come into the U.S., take jobs from Americans. First of all, there's no fixed number of jobs in the economy. If that was true, there'd be massive unemployment because we wouldn't have created any jobs.
Jobs come and go for different reasons.
Come and go for different reasons, and we have a growing economy over time. And the notion is that immigrants have different skills than we as Americans do. They work with us in the economy that expands the size, not to mention the fact that they buy trillions of dollars of products from the rest of us.
Right, and they also provide transnational connections for American businesses. They're often bridges and pathways to development overseas. Those connections that they leave behind, they don't abolish them, and particularly with today's technology.
Experts say that I talk to, and historians as well, that immigration is part of the fabric of America. In a recent Gallup poll, 70+% of Americans believe that America is on the wrong track. Is this immigration bill, whether it passes in full or in pieces, ultimately, is it good or bad for the United States?
My view is it's good for the United States if it passes, and I think that it passes as comprehensively as possible. Because as Alex said, it's the high-skill people where there's the greatest support. But we also see in low-skill occupations, we see people who are making real economic contributions. And I think what we shouldn't forget is the children of immigrants. How many of them are citizens? Close to 85% of the children of immigrants. And we look at the demographics of America, and who's going to pay for
how many millions of undocumented children are there in
the
U.S.?
There are actually very few undocumented children, okay, because most of them are born in the U.S. and then are citizens.
But the parents are not.
The parents may not be, and people use the disparaging term of anchor babies.
So does the immigration bill solve that problem, where they may have been in the country now for a number of years and they're labeled as illegal, even though they're sort of working and they're living a normal life, but they've got this awful label to them? Does the immigration bill solve that problem, giving them a path to citizenship?
Well, it depends which bill gets passed.
I mean, the Senate bill as it stands right now has a pathway to citizenship in there. But according to most estimates, that would only capture a little bit more than half of all the current unauthorized immigrants in the United States and push them towards citizenship. There really needs to be like a bigger pathway, a more expansive pathway for people to at least get legal status.
You both basically agree that we need to do more, and this is a good thing. And to be honest, I agree. Obviously, immigration is a good thing for the country. There's no secret about that. So the question is, what's the problem here?
Well,
Who's against this?
Well, the problem is there are a lot of people who are operating with very bad facts.
Right.
There are people who have the notion that there's a fixed number of jobs.
Are you calling out Republicans saying they have the bad facts?
Well, I'm calling out all the people who are opposed to it. I mean, there are people on both sides of the political divide who are opposed to this bill. There are people who are nonpartisan who are opposed to this bill. And the fact is that they think that we have a zero-sum economy, a zero-sum society, and if an immigrant does well here, then that means a native must do poorly. And that just simply isn't true. And what's more galling about this is that as Americans, we know our history. Does anybody alive seriously think that we would be wealthier today if no Italians or Jews or Germans or any other immigrant group wouldn't come today?
I'll throw in the Chinese. James, what's wrong with the politicians here in Washington, D.C.? Why are they holding back something that could be good for the economy, at least what we think?
Right. And I think it's in part, it's bad information. It's also incomplete information. You know, where what people understand about the contributions of immigrants is very, very partial. They don't understand what's going on at the lower skill end. And also, I think, you know, as Alex says, you know, in the high skill area, you know, we see a lot of support for the immigration reform bill.
Okay, I got 60 seconds left, and I need to ask a very important question. I was talking to some young students. They're from Asia, they're from China, and of course the number of students here coming to U.S. to study has more than quadrupled in the last few years. Here's the question. We invite them to come to the U.S. We invite them to come to great universities. We invite them to study. We invite them to live. We invite them to pay taxes. But yet when they graduate, they all have to leave. How is that good for the United States?
I've yet to see a single argument that can make a logical defense of that notion that we bring people over, we allow them to get educated, and then we send them home. There was absolutely no sense to it.
James?
Well, the sense to it, I think, is there are growing opportunities for them to go home. And I think, you know, we're going to find ourselves in a precarious position in a few years competing to keep these people to stay here.
You guys are great. James, Alex, thank you very much. We're going to have you back and gone, and we'll see what happens to this bill as it heads into the House of Representatives.